It's Thursday again, tell everybody to lock in, grab some popcorn, a drink, and go and throw your AirPods in. It's the 1 hour show, constantly speaking facts. Bulletproof stats are always shooting from Matt. And when it comes to Kyle, you getting numbers and style. Jake is gonna educate you, he has that knowledge on file. Players, step your game up, don't be sluggish or lazy. Or Jimmy J might hit you with a shaky baby. Catch him on YouTube or any podcast platform. Breaking all the news down like Shaq does the backboards. No hot takes, this is where the hottest debate's at. Now kick your feet up, cause it's time for straight facts.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains. Now presented by the Up On Game podcast network.
Big news.
Big news for us. Shout out LeVar Arrington, TJ Hushmanzada, Plaxico Burress for picking us up, and the sky's the limit from here now.
Hey, look, and we've been doing this for a while. I think closing in on 2 years total for Straight Facts. You guys,
2 years.
Kyle, you came on during the pandemic, Matt.
We started April 2019.
Yeah, so it's been a long journey, but really the journey is just beginning. We finally have our foot in the door, and we're definitely going to take advantage of it.
Yes,
I can't wait.
Well, I'm sure we got new listeners. We're going to have more even coming through. So I'm your host, Kyle Sirik, for today. James Jackson's our normal host. He's out away.
Podcast IR.
We had one guy just come off Podcast IR to my right. This
back.
is Jake Galley. And we got Stat Matt Robinson. So this is Straight Facts. We're moving up the totem pole. A lot of NFL teams are starting to make their move up the totem pole. And that's going to lead us into our first segment. That is the NFL midseason movers. There's one team that has to be on this list, and we'll just start with them. That's the Pittsburgh Steelers. We saw them on Monday night take down the Bears. 4 straight wins. They're now the hottest team in the AFC North. After 4 weeks, they were 1-3. Everyone else in the division was 3-1. And now they're sitting half a game back of the Ravens of first place. So, no one, if someone tells you they know what's going to happen in this division, they have no clue. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have now entered the conversation. And what are we seeing for their chances this year?
Well, if you guys remember a couple episodes, I think it was before the season, I said they might be a good bet for worst finish in the NFL, worst record in the NFL.
You did say that.
And after the 1-3 start, I was pretty confident in my prediction. But you got to give a ton of credit to the defense and what they've done. And I guess somewhat also Big Ben. It's weird to say, but Big Ben has been like that veteran, that savvy presence.
Host the first 4 games.
It really did. It was a miraculous turnaround of sorts. And Kyle, you know the team better than I do. I know that we did a fantasy video a couple weeks before the season, and you mentioned Deontay Johnson as a guy who you had your eyes on. He's now really starting to come out of his shell. And there's also some free agents, wide receivers on the market as well. That maybe, who knows? Who knows? One big name guy could potentially end up maybe on Pittsburgh. I don't know. Chase Claypool getting injured. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe banged up.
Yeah.
But it's been very impressive. And Matt, if you want to read off the stats here, there have been some impressive turnarounds.
Yeah, Roethlisberger in the first 4 games of the season looked cooked. Like I said, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 78.9 passer rating, and just 6.1 yards per attempt. On this 4-game win streak, Roethlisberger 6 touchdowns, no picks, 104.6 pass rating, and 7.4 yards per attempt. So he's turning back the clock. And I think Mike Tomlin doesn't get enough credit.
Oh, yeah.
Because saying that they might be the worst team in the league, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record. He had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph for a full season and still managed to go 8-8. So I don't think the Steelers are that great, but they'll scrap along and finish 9-8 because Mike Tomlin, it's impossible for him to finish under 500.
Yeah, and so this is a tough division. The NFC West was the one people were coming in. That's probably the hardest division in football. That's kind of switched. The 49ers have been bad. Seahawks have been without Russell Wilson. I know he's coming back. And this division's kind of, kicking it into gear and taking that number 1 spot. Every team has a winning record right now. So I want to know, because we're talking about the Steelers right now, in this division race, looking at the other teams in this division, what do you think's the spot for the Steelers?
Well, I don't know. It's really, like I said, I have such a pessimistic viewpoint on this team, and I think that's coming around. I still they're the fourth best team by talent, in my opinion, in the division. I know it's hard to say that with results.
That's tough, yeah.
But you have the Ravens, who I think are more talented. Mm-hmm. The Browns are the big question mark to me.
Yeah.
Because they could easily be jumped. Their quarterback is going to be at least banged up, we'll say, with the shoulder, Baker, all year. So maybe that knocks them. And Cincinnati, while they've looked impressive, and we talked about with Matt B how much we like Cincinnati here.
Yeah.
They also have struggled. They lost to the Jets. So, it's really tough for me to say. I'd say optimistic looking at it since they have improved. Third best in the division. And that's still maybe good enough to get into the playoffs.
At this point, it would be. I think the Steelers are in the playoff spot right now, and I believe the Browns also are, if I'm not mistaken. So, Matt, what about you?
I think Baltimore is a legitimate AFC contender. I think Cleveland is better than Pittsburgh, and I think both Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are decent teams that could sneak into the playoffs. I'd give the edge to Cincinnati just because I want them to. Just being honest.
I hear that.
I want them to. But the Steelers are 19th in DVOA. So they're really not – if you look at, Baltimore, they're 6th. Cleveland's 5th, which is really bizarre to me. And, Steelers are 19th. Bengals are 22nd. I think there's a clear distinction despite the fact that the records aren't that much different. But I think throughout the rest of the season, you'll see Baltimore break away and finish probably 12-5, 13-4 maybe. Cleveland finish 11-6, 10-7, and then both Pittsburgh and Cincinnati will be fighting for that 9-8, 8-9 zone.
Yeah, this is what I'll say about the Steelers. We saw them last year get off to the best start in the NFL. Was it 13-0? Was it 11? 11-0? And basically fall off a cliff, get embarrassed in the first round of the playoffs by someone in their own division. I thought last year should have been Big Ben's last year. I know for a fact this year is going to be Big Ben's last year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm with you talent-wise. I'm not sure they're there, but they play tough. They probably have the best home field advantage of any team in this division. So I lean with Matt on Baltimore. The Cincy is the toss-up for me. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to do it. I think if the Steelers can rattle off a couple more quick, say they go 3-1, 3-2 in their next 5, that still sets them up to be in the playoffs easily. The hurdle for me with them is Cincinnati because I think this team is really good. So, but we can move on. You talked about Cincinnati. You got something else?
I just want to say we'd be singing a different tune if the refs weren't as bad as they were Monday night.
And that was crazy, yeah. So I still have a lot of cautions with the Steelers. Their new tight end's been great. Freiermuth. Him and Deontay kind of pick up the slack that they lose in Claypool, and obviously Juju hasn't done anything in almost 2 years now, right? Has a flash-in-the-pan game here and there, but we'll move on to another mid-season mover. You talked about Cincinnati losing the game to the Jets. Another team that lost the game to the Jets has now won 5 straight, and that's the Tennessee Titans. That's the only team in the league who's won 5 straight, and they have sole possession of the number 1 seed in the AFC. I mean, so we saw this team go 9-7 from 2016 to 2019. We saw them be in the AFC Championship game just 2 years ago. Look at their schedule. They have a lot of bad teams coming up. They could really be the number 1 team in the AFC. But can they get over that hurdle? We've seen them in the B tier of the AFC. They made the championship, but even then they did it as a 6th seed. I mean, they weren't supposed to be in that game. Is this the year that the Titans can really keep it going? They've won 5 straight. I mean, that's impressive.
See, it's like a conflict of logic because on one hand, every part of me believes that Ryan Tannehill is not capable of leading a team to the Super Bowl. Period. He can be in whatever system now, especially. I mean, Derrick Henry might come back at the end of the year, but we're really going to see without Derrick Henry here how much they can rely on Ryan Tannehill. On the other hand, they've beaten just about every good team. I say good team because they lose to the bad ones. They've beaten every good team that gets put in front of them or gives them a hell of a game. And you look at a team that's been there before. They are playoff tested. When it comes playoff time, if the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs of old, they're as live. I mean, they probably should be the favorite, especially after what we've seen early in the year. And that's with they've gotten past the whole A.J. Brown slump. That's over. That dude's eating again. Yeah. So I'm very, very excited to see where they go now without Henry and how that offense changes.
For me, it comes down to Tannehill. They're 7-2. He's been struggling. It's his worst year as a Titan. His first year, he played incredible, 110 passer rating,
highest in the league,
8.6 yards per attempt. And he's 25-10 as a Titan starter. Like, that's where this resurgence happened. They were just always mediocre with Mariota. And then he became the starter, and that season they made the AFC title game. Last year they go 11-5. They lose to Baltimore in the playoffs. So that was kind of like a Baltimore revenge game. If he can get it clicking with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, and then Henry comes back for the postseason, with their easy schedule the rest of the way as a 1 seed, they got a great shot. And I know it sounds like a lot of caveats, but the AFC's wide open.
Wide open. I think that is the thing. For me, it's not so much Tannehill. I've kind of, ever since I saw him put up that 110 passer rating, highest in the league that year, I know he came in a little late. He didn't play a full season, but still played a lot of games. I think he's fine. I think Ryan Tannehill is an elite quarterback in this league. I've defended that point before. I can do it again. I think it comes down to the defense.
Yeah.
They've been bad.
Yeah.
In multiple games this season. I mean, they lost to the Jets. You can just take that as it is. I mean, you lose to the Jets any way it is.
They've been good in other games too, though.
Yeah, but they were good in the Rams game, I will say.
And the Chiefs game.
But those, because that was the game Mahomes threw 2 tipped interceptions, correct?
Yeah, but they tipped it.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. But I don't think they're as good as you would expect for the 1 seed in the AFC.
I don't think anyone's good enough in the AFC for them to be the 1 seed in the AFC usually.
But to have a defense, like, I'll trust the Ravens defense. I'll trust other teams. But this, I mean, what is the Titans in DVOA?
In DVOA overall, they're 14th, but in defense, they're 10th.
What's the difference?
Basically, they like their performances, and obviously they looked terrible against Arizona, looked rough against Seattle, and rough against the Jets, and rough against the Bills. But I think, and the Colts, how are they 10th?
Exactly. I'm telling you, they've been bad. And this is your stat, DVOA. It's your stat. 14th is the 1 seed in the AFC, and that's where the question mark is.
I mean, it's the roller coaster. Like, their last 7 games, you look at the opponent's points scored. You have 16 last week against the Rams, great performance. 31 against the Colts, horrendous. Holding the Chiefs to 3 points, great. I mean, was it the worst passer rating of Mahomes' career? Is that what I read? Right. I mean, like, so great job. And then you go back, Buffalo Bills, 31. Granted, a very good team. Jacksonville, below 20, 19. So it's this up and down sort of week-by-week thing. I guess that means that the Saints are going to put 30 on them this upcoming week.
The thing is, if you look at the schedule, so you've got Houston twice, you got the Dolphins, you've got the 49ers, and you've got Jacksonville. And I don't think the Steelers are that good. And we'll talk about the Patriots later. It's such a – all they got is – if you're the 1 seed, you've got to win 2 home games to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So are they really
easier said than done. But
are they really that good? No, but if you're the 1 seed, you can sneak in.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm penciling them in to the playoffs and saying there's a 75% shot it'll be as the 1 seed. But I'm talking now getting to the Super Bowl. They've gotten to the step before, right? They've had this success. Do you believe this is the best team in the AFC?
No, I go Baltimore.
Okay.
See, like I said, I don't believe in Tannehill, but I also have and it's a shame I didn't get to say this to Matt V when he was on here, because I know he's high on saying, Lamar MVP, whatever. Like, Lamar Jackson costs his team game, and we've seen it, costs his team games too. And there are some other times where he gets really lucky when the ball gets put on the ground. And recently they've been able to, like, he hasn't had like a game-breaking fumble or anything, but that is super live to happen when he's running around. Like, they'll, and I never understand this. They do it with Josh Allen too. Why would you ever design a run play for your quarterback where the guys tackling him are going to be the middle linebackers and the box safeties? Like, for the life of me, I can't understand why plays are designed that way, and I get it.
Because he averages 6.2
Well, because he can break one.
rush.
He can break one, right? That's great. And you know what? Have your 6.2 yards per rush, and then you're going to have a lacerated lung when a linebacker catches him not looking. Like, this is what happens to RG3. This is what happens to go back all throughout all the running quarterbacks. Cam Newton gets banged up over the years. Like, I don't know. I know it's how he is his best. He can't he's not Lamar Jackson without the running element, and it makes him who he is, that MVP level player.
Yeah, but we're not betting on Lamar's next 3 years. We're just betting on this year.
Right. And
that's 9 games, regular season games to go.
I just think that, and you know what? Like, they have other great facets to that Ravens team, too. It doesn't all fall on Lamar's shoulders. Ultimately, I mean, it kind of does. But, like, for the sake of, like, building a competitive team. But in that regard, like, I can see your point. The Titans are very similar in that way. Not as good at the quarterback position, but you could argue they're better in some other spots. So
yeah.
I think if I had to bet right now, I would bet the Titans finishes the number 1 seed, just based on the record.
Yeah, I think they'll be
definitely number one seed. I think Derrick Henry is going to hurt this team in the playoffs. The fact that he's not there is
he might come
blow.
Back. Well, it's ambiguous.
But wasn't it a foot injury?
Is it the Lisfranc? Or I think it's
Jones fracture.
Jones, that's what I'm going back through all the Sixers' former foot injuries.
Yeah, right. But it's a foot injury to your running back, to your team identity, right? Maybe Adrian Peterson can be serviceable in the regular season. I doubt it. Maybe Jeremy McNichols can be good. He's showing flashes. But when it comes down to it, Derrick Henry won't be back 100%. I'm going to say that there will be 2 better teams in the AFC going into the playoffs. It'll be the Ravens.
It on tape now.
It'll be the Ravens, and it will be. I'm not saying I still think they can be the number 1 seed, but I'm saying when it gets to the playoffs, I'm going to have 2 teams that I'm way more comfortable picking than the Titans to make the Super Bowl.
Fair.
It'll be the Ravens, and it'll be either the Bills or the Chiefs. But we'll move on. Matt hinted at it. The next midseason mover, who kind of surprising, is the New England Patriots. They started 1-3. They are now 5-4. They've won 3 in a row. They haven't dropped the game at home. And the team above them in their division, the Buffalo Bills, just lost to the Jaguars. They are falling. They're only half a game back. That is the Patriots of the division. The wild card is fully in play. Maybe not a team we thought we'd be talking about at this point to make the playoffs, but I mean, the New England Patriots are doing it. And behind a rookie quarterback, nonetheless, maybe it's more of a, nod, tip of the hat to Bill Belichick because, he's done it with bad quarterbacks before. And I don't think Mac Jones is bad. But are the Patriots legit? Are the Patriots, this move right now, can it continue? Can they sustain this success?
I think you probably say yes because of Bill Belichick. Like, I feel comfortable. Like, obviously, you don't know what's going to happen, but I feel comfortable, way more comfortable than, like, projecting if the Titans are going to carry up this play. Like, I'd rather bet on the Patriots being consistent with what we've seen. There's actually, I've been on the Up On Game podcast with LeVar giving out picks.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, one of the games that we include has been the New England Patriots just because of the weird spots, against Dallas. There was another spot against maybe Tampa that they covered. I mean, they're covering
the Panthers or Tampa.
Right,
yeah.
They're a covering machine. So, I just feel comfortable in betting on this team going forward, especially considering, maybe the Bills do have some problems.
Fair
This year.
Matt?
For me, they're 5-4 because of the teams they've played. 4 of their 5 wins are against god-awful teams. They beat the Jets twice, they beat the Texans, and I think the Panthers are god-awful at this point.
Yeah.
And coming up, they got to play Tennessee, who I obviously think they're I think Cleveland's better than them. I think the Colts are better than them, and they play the Bills twice.
Tough.
So that's tough. I think if you're a Patriots fan, the thing you're hoping for is not basically a playoff run, but just be encouraged by Mac Jones. Here's a little figure out who quarterback 2 is. Here's the thing. So, blind quarterback resume. So, Mac Jones this year, 89.8 passer rating, 68% completion, 7.1 yards per attempt. QBX, 88 passer rating, 60.8% completion, and 6.6 yards per attempt.
Why do I know that? Is QB2 going to be like Tom Brady or something?
It's Tom Brady's last year in New England. So similar weapons, and Mac Jones is playing Brady's one of worst years, but still, as a rookie coming in, playing an NFL schedule, when I was one of his detractors, you have to be very encouraged. He's by far the best rookie quarterback this year. And if you're a Patriots fan, don't be like, oh, we need to make the playoffs. Just be happy that you look like you have another good quarterback.
Yeah. Going forward, they're great. I'm going to pump the brakes on this year, though.
It's pretty funny that that I know Matt well enough to know that second quarterback is some shape and form Tom Brady.
I saw it in the script, and I was going to guess, guys. I didn't know this was a previous year, so I was like, Big Ben hasn't been completing as many passes. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's Jalen Hurts surprising us, but
it's going to be a deep cut. Matt knows how to cut them deep.
Yeah, but I'm gonna pump the brakes on the Patriots this year.
Okay.
Matt mentioned the teams they've played: 2 wins against the Jets, 1 against the Texans, 1 against the Panthers. You can't point to a single one of them and say it's impressive. That's 1 out of 5. Decent. 1 out of 5 wins. Every team can pull a 1 out of 5 wins. The thing about the Patriots, though, is they're gonna have to catch the Bills in not one but both of the games that they play them. They're going to have to beat them and then have continued success to pass them, because I don't think they have a shot at the wild card. I'll take whatever 3 teams don't make the AFC North, aren't the AFC North winner. I will take the Broncos over them, truly. I mean, the Chiefs and the Chargers, both of them are probably getting in. There's so many teams you have to hurdle, but the Patriots aren't the team I'm confident in saying you're going to hurdle, because we can make the same argument and talk about, the Bengals, right? Same amount of teams to hurdle, but now the Patriots are the one they have to hurdle, and the Patriots I'm chalking in as they hurdle that. So I don't think the Patriots are doing it.
No, that's fair. I just think, and we can move on after this, but the only counterpoint I'd have is, yes, they beat up on bad teams, but this is, again, why I'm comfortable in backing them in the fact they have Bill Belichick, who has proven to be, if anyone's going to coach their team up to play better teams or to slow down these high-profile units, it's Bill Belichick. And you know what? We'll see what happens. Like you said, I actually like the Bengals more than I do the Patriots' chances to get in, but we'll see.
All right, and that was just the example. I'll take the Broncos. I mean, there's a bunch of teams, but we'll move on. We'll go real quick through the last team. That's the Atlanta Falcons. There's only one team really moving in the NFC. Only 4 out of this surprised me. Only 4 out of the 16 NFC teams even won their last game, right? So the Falcons have won 3 out of their last 4. They were 1-3 after week 1. We were like, this team sucks. Now they're 4-4.
They're still garbage. They're absolutely.
They're sitting in the DVOA. They are currently sitting in a playoff spot. The Atlanta Falcons,
31st in DVOA. They're getting carried by Matt Ryan because they've scraped wins against the Giants, scraped a win against the Dolphins, scraped a win against the Jets. If it wasn't for Matt Ryan, the last 6 games putting up really good numbers, they'd be 1-7 right now.
I think there's also another guy who, honestly, if you were to silhouette him playing and just say, guess who this is, and show me some of his highlights, I might think it's Jim Brown. That being Cordero Patterson.
Playing great.
I don't know of anyone who is more efficient when they get the ball.
Yeah.
The dude runs hard as heck, and I don't know, man. If you have him, Calvin Ridley's situation really hurts them. Who knows he's taking some time to get his mental right. That's probably the best course of option for him or action for him. So it's definitely a speculative situation in Atlanta, and there'd be a team that I would guess falls back.
Yeah, definitely. This is a team you can point to. But one thing you can say about the NFC that wasn't true, we just talked about all those AFC teams, is there's not many people you need to hurdle. There's a lot of bad teams in the NFC, including, worst team in football, the Lions. Vikings are playing bad. Bears are bad. 3 teams in the NFC East realistically are bad. And the NFC West is underperforming. So do I think they make the playoffs? No. Have they positioned them in a great spot to do it? Yeah. Kyle Pitts is making the jump. Cordell Patterson's been everything. We'll see what they do, but we'll move on.
They're going to lose 11 games.
Wow.
They're going to go 2-7 the rest of the way. I just went through their schedule.
Stamp that one.
Yeah, we got that one. Time code 2429. Matt, you're done.
And Matt Ryan is Matt's boy.
I love Matt Ryan.
But we'll move on. We're going NBA now. You know how we're doing it. And this is kind of where we have both going on. Maybe NFL playoffs, we'll skip NBA for a week. But we're going to hit on both for the time being. And we're going to look up the teams that are having surprisingly good starts. For the most part, the NBA playoff picture is shaping up somewhat like it was last year. But there's a couple teams that no one was thinking about. And there's a couple teams where if you had to pick, before which teams would be these teams, it wouldn't be these ones. No. And I know that's confusing, but hopefully you're on the same page as me. So the first one's the Cleveland Cavaliers. 7-4. Evan Mobley is the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. This guy's balling 15 points a game. Yeah, he's the favorite currently. 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, a steal, over a block, and shooting 52% from the field. Ricky Rubio, apparently is the monster man now, what he did in the Garden the other day.
I was watching that game. Like, I don't know what about it. It
Yeah.
just makes it cracks me up.
Darius Garland somehow surpassed Colin Sexton of being the best guard in that backcourt, which no one saw coming. Sexton now tore his meniscus. That is a caution flag. But this team is playing well. It's not flashy. Their highest points per game is 16.9, but they have 6 guys in double figures. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers, talk about their core. Like, what can they actually do here?
It is really perplexing to watch them play basketball.
Yeah.
Because their starting lineup, it's like, they went Sexton and Garland, I think, in back-to-back drafts, right? And you're like, okay, they have an influx of guards. Maybe they're trying to – they had Kevin Porter Jr. at the time, too.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, they're trying to do the whole small ball thing. And then they said, we're actually doing the exact opposite. And they brought in 3 guys who are, I think, the shortest. Their front court's like 6'10", 7 foot. When you have Markkanen, Mobley, and Jared Allen, and it works.
Yeah.
Like when you watch them play, they give teams problems. It's kind of almost what Sixers fans expected Embiid, Horford, Simmons to be on that front court. But they're playing inspiring basketball. Like you said, Evan Mobley has been seriously impressive.
Very good.
He's taken the step forward. Jared Allen's super reliable. So
I was big on Suggs over Mobley, but I knew that at that 3 spot, they weren't going to take another guard, right? But the way Mobley's looked, I was wrong on that. I was 100% wrong on that.
I didn't think he would be this good. Like he is. It's kind of hyperbole, but there are in ways he kind of reminds me of a young Embiid. Sometimes. Is like once he starts to put on some muscle, I think he'll be a much improved player.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've been exciting to watch. I just don't know how far they're going to go.
I agree. And so you say they're flipping the script on, the small ball NBA. They're also flipping the script on just conventional thinking in terms of NBA. Only 1 of 4 teams that don't have a 20-point per game scorer. And the other 3 teams are the Houston Rockets, the Detroit Pistons, and the San Antonio Spurs, who are 5 and 24
they don't have
combined.
20-point score on purpose.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy here. And they're not even – I mean, I know Dejounte Murray's at 19. I would assume that Kevin Porter Jr. is probably above that 16 points per game that the Cavs are at. They might have the highest score in any team in the NBA. So, I've been impressed with the Cavs.
They remind me a lot of the, mediocre Sixers with, Iguodala, Drew Holiday. Because those teams didn't have a 20-point per game scorer. I remember one year Lou Williams was the leading scorer, and he was the 6th man.
Off the bench, yeah.
They're fun. They're young. They're decent. I kind of think they'll fall off, kind of like the Hornets last year. Hornets were 27 and 24, and then they fell off.
Yeah.
I think the Cavs will be like that. They'll fun year for the fans, growing, but they'll fall off and miss the playoffs by a couple games.
Well, they're really going to turn it around next year. Once they get that big free agent to come to Cleveland,
they're
really going to turn it around. They'll be okay.
Yeah, just do that again. Yeah. That once-in-a-lifetime thing ever. Yeah. But we'll move on to another team. Surprising good start. The new-look Wizards. They're 7 and 3. They're having more success without Russell Westbrook than they had last year. I know they started kind of hot last year, but then started to fall off, just like potentially what could happen this year. I've been impressed. Bradley Beal doesn't have to score 30 a game. Dinwiddie's been great. Kuzma's been great. Montrezl Harrell either remembered how to play basketball or the Lakers coaching staff was so bad that they never put him on the court, but now he has an opportunity to shine, and that's what he's doing. I'm actually, out of all the teams, they're not my favorite team, but they're my second favorite team of all the ones we're about to talk about.
You have to give Executive of the Year to Tommy Shepard, the GM.
Yeah.
Because he took one of the worst contracts in the NBA, and this maybe is a little bit of hate for Russell Westbrook, but I mean, I think it's fair to say with the way that he's played in LA this year that he's probably not worth the 40-some M's that he's getting paid.
Yeah.
He took that, unloaded that contract, and got 3 guys who have been huge contributors to the team when you look at KCP, Kuzma, and Harrell. They make up 37% of their total scoring this year. So outside of Beal and Dinwiddie, those 3 have been the most influential on the team. And what's also impressive is they've done all this without Roy Hachimura.
Yeah.
Kind of a big question mark there when he's going to be back. But you could argue he's their second best player when he's healthy.
Yeah. I mean, outside of Russ and Beal, he was the only player on that team last year that you could actually be impressed from watching the Wizards. And now they have a bunch of other guys. That could be huge for them. And Denny Avdia, who I'm going to give a shout out to, Still not playing many minutes, but I'm seeing him this year look way more comfortable on the floor, which is huge for, a European player in his second year, a top pick last year, a lottery pick, who people were kind of scratching their heads at. I think he's just ready to make a leap too.
He has.
Couple things about the Wizards. One good, one bad. The bad news is that Montrezl Harrell won't shoot 64% from the field the rest of the season. The good news is that Beal's going to shoot way better than 25% from three. So I don't want to make everything about Russell Westbrook because I like him. But it's such an indictment of Russell Westbrook the last 5 years. He leaves OKC for the Rockets. The Rockets get worse. OKC stays the same. Yeah. He leaves the Rockets for the Wizards. The Rockets tanked. But then he leaves the Wizards for the Lakers. The Lakers get worse, and the Wizards get better so far. So it's really shown how he hasn't been able to adapt to the last 4 years of the NBA after being a superstar the first 9 years of his career.
And one of the low-key things about this team, like you look at their center spot or their bigs, I should say, I won't say center, but they start Daniel Gafford. They also have Montrezl Harrell. And I guess Kuzma now technically plays the four spot.
They start Gafford and Kuzma plays the four, yeah.
So, off rip, you might think that, well, this is a team that's going to get beat up by size, but they've been great in terms of their defensive acumen. A league best 48% effective field goal percentage allowed. They are third in free throw attempts, so they're being physical, getting to the hoop on the offensive end. And then
that's huge.
In the paint, first in defensive rebounding, second in blocks. And, it's just Gafford, and Gafford is a great rim protector, even though he's not a prototypical center.
Start Harrell. That's what I'll say.
Think?
Yes.
Also, Kuzma is showing that he's a much better rebounder than we knew.
Yeah.
He's averaging 9.5 rebounds per game. Before that, he was averaging like 6.
He was never forced to be a wing player, but he played like a wing player. Now with shooters,
and Davis ate up there.
Now with 3 shooters, KCP's has proven he can get hotter than, the majority of the guys in the league. Bradley Beal, we know about. Dinwiddie, high usage rate, can play the wing, primarily a ball handler. Kuzma doesn't need to be out there, and that's been huge for him. I mean, he's still 6'10". Like, watching Kyle Kuzma, sometimes you forget he's 6'10".
Well, he is, and he during when he had his big run of hype after the summer league, he was playing the 4 a lot of the time.
No.
And I think that is where it kind of same with Ben Simmons, where that's the type player that, because they are at that size with that handle, are like a perfect mismatch for most 4s that you're going to see in the league. And I wouldn't mind, like you said, you're saying start Harrell over Gafford.
I would love it.
I think they could do. They would just miss out a little bit on rim protection, even though Montrez averaging 1.3 blocks, a career best
hooping
this year. Yeah,
they're playing the Wizards are much more real than the Cavs, just because I know that they have Bradley Beal.
Yeah, my reason on that though is because Gafford was hurt. And when Harrell started, he became like the best player on the floor, and Bradley Beal was still on the floor. Yeah. Now I can see the argument, spark plug off the bench. Like with guys like that, you're okay with your backup center being better than your starting center just because the way rotations work. Yeah. So I mean, maybe if Harrell's still getting more minutes, I'm fine with that. But very interesting team. Another team who, maybe we forgot about. Maybe they, underhyped last year, kind of let us down since they won the championship a few years back, is the Toronto Raptors. They're sitting at 6-5 right now. Vegas had them going 35-47. Pascal Siakam made his season debut yesterday. Not as many minutes but you know how that works. So the minutes will ramp up quickly. And Scotty Barnes, who another guy I was wrong about the draft. I thought 5 was such a reach. I would rather had Kuminga, a couple of guys behind him, and he has been super impressive, and this is one that just hit me watching the Raptors. Giannis, just the way he plays. Very, very Giannis-like.
He does have freakish proportions. I can't even remember exactly. Isn't his wingspan really disproportionate to his body?
It's crazy. Well, he's lengthy, very lengthy, but Giannis now finds the mid-range shot a lot. Scotty Barnes is a big part of his game, attack or mid-range shot. Yeah, very well. So, I mean, I'm not going to overhype him and leave around the rest of the team, though. Fred VanVleet stepping up. I mean, they're good.
7'3", Scotty Barnes.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, that's freakish. That is freakish.
Yeah. So. And they just have a bunch of guys that will give you buckets every night. If one guy's off, I mean, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent, now Pascal Siakam. Any one of these guys is, liable to give you 30 at least once this season.
Well,
And Van Fleet will do it a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
this year, actually, all 4 starters, I mean, we're early in the year. I think have like 10 games played, but all 4 starters have at least, excluding Siakam, obviously, first game back.
Yeah.
The other 4 starters have scored 25 or more points at least once this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that speaks exactly to what you're saying. Also, no starters averaging over 20. This is a little bit of a fudge because Fred VanVleet averages 20.2. But
OG averages
20.2.
Yeah.
But none of them average under 15 points per game.
Yeah.
So, like, this is like the typical, and now they are, once again, like they completely change over their stars, the people who have the responsibility of running the team. And once again, they are like a superstar away from being a dominant team.
Very
in
dominant.
The Eastern Conference.
I mean, Gary Trent's probably the 4th best player on that team. And he has been, if you watch the Raptors games, which unfortunately I do, maybe not as unfortunate this year, but I've watched a lot of them so far. Gary Trent is like one of the best defenders in the league this year and is giving buckets on the opposite side. The way they run the rotations, they'll pull out all their starters and leave Trent on the floor to play the first 4 minutes with the second unit. And he has been so productive in that time and such a difference maker. It was the Magic game, but he was the reason they beat the Magic. Yeah. I mean, there's so much that Gary Trent's doing as your 4th best player that just another guy you don't expect to get that from. And that's really the NBA in a nutshell. Guys that you don't expect to contribute, you know the stars what they're going to give you. But if you have 2 guys that are now taking a huge leap that you had no clue were even going to be good, that's how you get success in the NBA. And they're starting to build that mold.
I still think 35 and 47 is a fair projection from Vegas.
I don't think anymore.
I go a little higher. I think like 38 and 44. I think they remind me a lot of like last year's Spurs, where really good coach is going to keep them in it. They have a really good wing player, DeRozan versus Siakam.
Yeah.
And some good guards you can rely on, but they're just not there.
I think this team is going to go 500 and make the play-in tournament for sure.
This is
but they weren't supposed to.
I view them like last year's Chicago, or like once after they added Vucevic, where it's like, wow, these guys are a couple pieces, one big piece away from being like serious. But I agree.
Very serious. Yeah. All right, well, we'll go to one more team. We'll move over to the West. For NFL, we hit primarily AFC. We're hitting kind of the Eastern Conference here, but we'll move to the West, and that is the Grizzlies, right? They did sneak into the playoffs last year. They're currently sitting 6-4. But their team's a lot different. And Dylan Brooks, who was probably their 2nd best player last year, you can make the case for Joe Val, but Brooks did the same thing, hasn't played a game yet. They're way more complete. Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, and DeAnthony Melton are now a huge part of this team that they weren't last year, albeit Jackson was hurt. But Bane and Melton were like the 8th and 9th guys in the rotation coming off the bench. So they're more complete to me. That's what I see in Memphis right now. John Morant is still continuing to improve. And this was the team I hinted at, or probably my favorite team of all the teams we're talking about right now, and was the team I penciled into the playoffs at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and if John Morant can continue, and here, John Morant is like a very interesting case study.
Yeah.
Because eye test tells you he's now ascended to the superstar status. He is clearly like the leader of this team, but then you go and look at his advanced stats, and the Grizzlies' advanced stats in general. But when you look at Jaws, his net plus minus and his on-off splits are negative, as in like that lineup, the starting lineup, theoretically has a negative plus minus. Also, when you look at his win shares per 48, that's a little weird too. He's 79th in the league, 0.127 win shares per 48, 0.001 behind my Tyrese Maxey. Our Tyrese Maxey.
My Tyrese Maxey, too.
Our Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
Yes, our Tyrese Maxey. So, like, it's just that is very interesting to me. That suggests that as the season goes on, that maybe these numbers won't hold. But they, according to Basketball Reference, they have had the hardest schedule in the NBA so far this year. So, like, maybe take that with a little pinch of a grain of salt.
What the John Morant thing tells me, too, is he's still very bad. Like, advanced stats, one, I hate plus minus. I've always hated plus minus.
Well, because it doesn't tell the complete story.
I think it's only beneficial to look at in the extremes if someone's plus minus was higher than 20 or lower than 20 in a game. I think that's really the only time you can look at plus minus.
I think in an aggregate it makes sense, but I think it shows because it's his defense that's holding him back.
Yeah.
And the Grizzlies defensively have allowed the 2nd most points per game in the NBA this year. They have allowed us only 2 teams have had opponent. Their opponents are shooting 38.6% from 3. That's 28th in the league. Their perimeter defense is really what's holding them back, and a lot of that is Ja Morant. Basically, they're playing how I expect them to play. Good, decent, a little around 500, sneak into the 8 seed. So nothing's really surprised or let me down so far.
I think Dillon Brooks patches up some of those holes, though. Dillon Brooks has been a good wing defender and will be their second best player when he comes back. You can make the argument for Jaren Jackson Jr., but if you take Brooks' production last year, and I know Jackson was hurt, and then you look at Jackson this year and compare him, if Dillon Brooks does that again, he'll easily be the second best player.
Here's my hot take. The Grizzlies, and there's a chance that New Orleans didn't want him. The Grizzlies sent the wrong big in the trade this offseason, offloading Eric Bledsoe and bringing in Steven Adams. They should have kept JV, and they should have sent Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm not a Jaren Jackson Jr. fan. He has all the promise in the world. 24% usage rate. He has 12 points per game, and his win share is again just horrendous. 0.035 per 48. Box plus minus is bad too. Minus 3.8.
I agree.
And maybe New Orleans thought that Valanciunas had a higher value. I don't think that's public perception.
I think so.
You think that was public perception last year?
Which one of us had him on the third All-NBA team last year? Is that you?
That was me.
Yeah. Well, so you thought so. And Valanciunas was great this year. The Pelicans have been so bad, but they've been plagued by obviously no Zion. Brandon Ingram's missed about half the game so far, and
don't worry, we'll talk. We'll hit on them.
Yeah, they've been very bad, but there has been a bright spot in J-Val. I think the flaw there.
Valanciunas led the Grizzlies in win shares last year.
Yeah, I think the flaw there is that Jaren Jackson is a true 4, and you got a true center in Steven Adams. So I don't think it makes sense to have Valanciunas and Steven Adams, and they'll take the young guy.
Whatever you could. Yeah, I guess that's a good
point. So
Steven Adams is in no man's land.
Yeah, so it is tough, but regardless, I think the Grizzlies are easily a playoff team and are playing a little better than I expected, but are about to make an even bigger jump with Dillon Brooks. But we'll move on. If you remember, we did probably week 2 of the NFL season. Facts or overreact, where we're going to bring, Jake just brought a hot take, so we're going to bring a couple hot takes to the table, and we're just going to say, is this a fact or is this an overreaction, right? So the first one, Luka Doncic has separated himself and is clearly the best player under 25. That's not the hot take. The hot take is that no one is even close to him. Matt, fact or overreact?
Devin Booker made the NBA Finals last year and was Luka's the best, but Devin Booker is not far away. I think he's trailing by a decent amount, but he's not that far away. Devin Booker doesn't have the greatest advanced stats, but for me, if you make the NBA Finals and you're the best player in most of that playoffs, he was better than Chris Paul in that playoff run, in my opinion. That is a whole level of clout that you can't just ignore.
Well, I don't know if we're counting that. He's 25 and 11 days old. So is it young? Is it young?
No, we're doing beginning of the season. Okay. Beginning of the season.
I'm going to say it's a pretty vicious overreaction. What have we seen? Luka's a phenomenal player, easily the best talent out of this group. But to say it's not close is pretty disrespectful to Trae Young, in my opinion, who led his team beat the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, led them to the Eastern Conference Finals. His play correlates equal or more to winning than Luka Doncic does. And now Luka has to deal with Kristaps Porzingis being his running mate. That's not a ton of fun. I can understand that being a struggle. But you look around, Devin Booker is another good example of a guy whose play translates to winning. You could even make the case that Tatum's play and Jaylen Brown, maybe Jaylen Brown's a little bit strange. Tatum's play. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we've finally hit a player that can maybe be in the conversation, and that's Jason Tatum. And to me, that's the only one that is maybe there. But I think this is a fact. And the reason it's a fact is because no one under 25 in the league right now is ever going to be better than Luka Doncic in their careers. And that's why I think it's a fact. Luka Doncic is the best player. That's unarguable. But I don't think anyone is close at all. I think there's some guys that have a shot to get there. Maybe LaMelo Ball, but you can't even talk about him right now. Way too early. maybe Anthony Edwards, but Luka does way more. Edwards would have to be like a Brad Beal type guy. So I don't think it's close.
It's funny. It reminds me of like a screaming match that Brian Scalabrine and Kendrick Perkins got into on the Scout House podcast over like, oh, Luka Doncic is the best 20. He's better than Michael Jordan and LeBron James as a 20-year-old. Like as a 20-year-old. Like,
yeah.
Michael and like it was a huge debate and argument. This makes me laugh. But I mean, but like he's definitely the best. But
I'm not hearing any Trae Young talk. Because you said it translates to winning, but they're not winning.
And they're not winning this year. All right, here we go.
But let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. The Atlanta Hawks are not winning, and we'll move to the second fact or overreact. That is that, and Matt's not going to like this one. The Atlanta Hawks will not make the playoffs. Fact or overreaction, Jake?
I'm going to say overreact because of just how wide the field is. Like it's like you have to really stink to like outright not make the playoffs, and then you give me Trae Young in any of those play-in tournament games. Like that's a guy who can single-handedly uplift you. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't been super tuned into their games.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I've watched through a game this year, but
it's the same team as last year.
Is Bogey?
Bogey's not having any big performances. He's playing average bogey ball.
Average bogey ball.
Sounds like my golf game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. It is a little bit of a head scratcher. I'll say that. They're a team that has definitely flown under the radar. I just have faith in them turning it around. They have a lot of like what would prevent them from doing what they did last year?
I think that was a fluke.
So it's just an outright fluke because that's a take. You could go that route and say it's a fluke. I don't have a problem with someone saying it's a fluke.
Yeah.
So you're going to go on record saying that it was a fluke. That this is truly what they are. They're a below 500 team.
I think last year they made the playoffs deservingly so. But we saw the best iteration we could ever see out of this Hawks team. Eastern Conference Finals. No one was thinking that at the beginning of the year. No one was thinking that when they were a 5 seed going into the playoffs. That was the best iteration the Hawks will ever be. To me, this is a fact. Hawks are not going to make the playoffs. And you can take the easy route, go overreact, and just be like, oh, maybe. But I'm going to
social media
and go, oh, maybe. You know, that's the easier route. But the route is fact. I don't think of the 8 teams that make the playoffs, play-ins tournament doesn't count. You still have to take that next step. I'm not counting 10 teams making the playoffs. They're not going to make it. Double-digit losses 5 times. Yes. Double-digit losses 5 times this year already. 5 out of their 8 double digits. Only 2 teams have had more. That is the Rockets and the Pelicans, the worst 2 teams in basketball. This was a fluke that they made the Eastern Conference Finals. I didn't have them in the playoffs this year. I will stick by that.
I had them as a 3 seed.
Yes, you did, and I had trouble with that.
They finished 27-11 down the stretch last year.
Yeah.
When they got Nate McMillan to bring in, Trae Young's having a lot of adjustment issues to the new contact rules. They're not going to be the 3 seed. I was wrong about that, but they're going to pick it up. They'll easily make the playoffs. They'll win 45, 46 games, and the slow start will be just seen as an adjustment period.
Yeah, maybe. But you coming off of Eastern Conference Finals, I mean, are you allowed to have slow starts?
It's a little tough to say at this point. I mean, like, they have had, I think it's like the 4th toughest schedule in the Eastern Conference. That's like middle of the road, so like take it or leave it sort of thing. But I just have faith in like a team that, like, obviously, like, right now, what are we sit 12 games in? Realistically, let's go to the standings. Like, realistically, they could end up as, like, the 4 seed. It wouldn't surprise me. They could still end up as the 3 seed. It wouldn't surprise me.
A lot of basketball to play. 70 games left.
Basketball to play. Now, based on the early returns, I would say, yeah, it looks like they could potentially miss out on the playoffs, but I bet against
The East got better. The East got better this year.
The thing is, I just don't have anything like disputable that I could say like this is why they're going to be better.
They're not. Well, they're not going to be better than last year. But the point,
I tend to agree with you because I didn't think they were going to be all that good last year. But I mean,
I'm
not
going
to say it was a fluke because
there's no way the Hawks can make the Eastern Conference with this team.
I feel like there's maybe some residual hate from the playoff.
There is residual hate.
Series.
I have no residual hate for that playoff series. I blame everything on the Sixers.
I don't have residual hate. I have residual bad takes because I rode the Sixers to the end.
Yeah.
And I believed it. Yeah, but I went, like, even when you guys were starting to maybe, like, I was like, no way the Sixers are losing. But I don't know. The Hawks, weren't a great team when they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They weren't, in my mind, deserving to be there. And I don't think they're a good team this year. A team that's over-relying on the three ball, has a superstar, quote unquote, that is not on the level of, the superstars that half of the teams in the league have. So no, I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, there is such a thing as getting a team on tape. Once you really flesh out how they attack and how they want to get to their sets, things become a lot more difficult. And if you're a young team like them, it's tough to adjust.
Yeah, so. We'll move on though to Zion Williamson. The factor overreact is Zion will be traded by the end of next season. Of course, that would be by the end of his rookie contract. Right. And so the Pelicans are 1-10. They've been our, multiple times this episode, our comparison point to talk about caution flags from other teams that, they're not doing much better than the Pelicans when you really look at it. So the Pelicans are 1-10. Zion has yet to play a game. He's the future of the franchise. Jake, I know you put this in here, so I want to hear your thoughts on this factor overreact.
So, I mean, there's already been whispers about Zion's camp not being happy. How could you be in a franchise like the New Orleans Pelicans? But I digress. I think when you look at who's going to have the most money, so I think like 7th and 8th in terms of projected cap space are the Knicks and the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, if he has not signed that Supermax, which truthfully, if I was advising him, I would just assign the Supermax and then find your way out. That's the Anthony Davis method. That's
crazy.
The way that you get paid the best.
Yeah.
And but if he doesn't go that route, they're essentially going to have after this year. Let's say he comes back halfway through this year and the year's already shot. It's going that way now. They're 1-10.
Yeah.
You're now going to have to either bring in a huge free agent, not going to happen, or you're likely going to get a top 5 pick, which you could trade for someone, or you bring in a top 5 rookie. Is that in your mind enough to convince a star player to stay? I don't think it is.
No. I don't even think they should give Zion a supermax. That's a hot take, though.
Wow, that's like super. This is actually spicier than mine.
Yeah, I don't think you should.
Zion's gone. They got to trade.
I know he's gone.
There's no
If
way.
you give it to him.
I thought you said done.
Gone. No, gone.
No. The Pelicans are a championship feeder. That's what they do.
They're fun.
Yes. So they give Anthony Davis to the Lakers, they win a chip. They give Drew Holiday to the Bucks, they win a chip. So even Christian Wood gets decent with him. He gets a big contract. Lonzo builds up his game. Now he's on Chicago, and they're a team that just is a transitional team that everyone wants to leave, and they're gonna flip Zion for value that they're gonna screw up, and that's just who the Pelicans are.
I mean, to be honest, they won I don't know if you can't really say they won because the Lakers won a championship with AD, but they got pretty good return off of AD's deal, the most picks at the time in a single transaction.
When they had Lonzo, they had Brandon Ingram, they had Zion, and they did jack squat.
Well, that's why I put it in here, because I do believe it's fact. They caught Zion on camera talking about how much he loves MSG. He was giggling about it.
Yeah.
It's not that far fetched for me to believe that he would want to take his brand to one of these big markets, especially on a team where he may not have to do it all. I'm not saying he has to do it all with Brandon Ingram in tow. He's a great player, but you're just not winning a title in New Orleans as currently constructed unless they pick someone who's as good or better than Zion with their 5th, 4th, 3rd, whatever it ends up 2nd overall pick. Then they're not going to win a championship.
They have great young talent, though.
They do.
They have Ingram who's become a superstar. Valanciunas has been great.
If your team's 1-10, you're not a superstar.
Nikhil Alexander. Well, Ingram hasn't played and proved himself to be a superstar.
If you can't make the playoffs as your best player, you're not a superstar.
Fair. That's fair enough. Yep. But then Nikhil Alexander-Walker's really young, great player. Devontae Graham, who I don't love. I mean,
pretty much never win the NBA.
I agree. I don't think this team can win a championship, but I think they could fight for one.
Yeah.
3 years down the road.
It would be a different story if this same exact team wore LA Lakers jerseys and played in Los Angeles. It would be a completely different story because eventually that help is coming.
Yeah.
Help's never coming in New Orleans.
Yeah, so. I'm gonna just go overreaction because I see so many outs to him not getting
Redick
traded.
Can maneuver his way out.
Yeah,
not a lot of
they broke his playoff streak.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just say overreaction because one, I think the Pelicans want to hold on to their once in a lifetime pick that they have, who is the future of their franchise, and I see a couple outs to where he plays. The only thing is, don't think Zion really wants to be
when
there.
you have a long rebuilding process, which is, I think, what the Pelicans have, and you have a player with an expiration date like Zion, you have to trade him. Because I would not bet 5 years from now that Zion is still a player you can count on to be a star.
But
just because of his health.
You think you have to trade him? I mean, they just picked him. He's supposed to be the future of this franchise.
It's the vicious cycle. Like, if they get nothing for him, then we have the 5-year cycle of you stinking until you get another Zion that you can squander. It begins again. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but just last point I will make. We were saying a lot of the same things about the Sixers and Joel Embiid 2 years into his NBA career. Plagued by injury. Well, you can never count on him. And we still to this day, he is injured. I mean, injury prone, I think, is a fair thing to put on Embiid. But, like, Embiid's an MVP-level player when he's on the court.
Yeah.
And if you can build around him, you can build the number one seed, around him, around a guy like him. So I think Zion has a lot of those qualities.
Yeah. Zion's value now is higher than Embiid's was before he played a game.
Correct.
I agree. We'll move on.
You couldn't have traded like Embiid for Towns straight up before you.
All right, we'll move on. That's it for Factor of React. I think we're going to cut the countdown. You guys go with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so we do still have time to get some shots up at the buzzer. Who's got one?
You can go ahead, Matt.
I found the most evil reality show that has ever existed.
Reality TV?
It's called Moment of Truth. It aired in the late 2000s. So all episodes are on YouTube. Basically, they get this person, you send in a survey, and you take 50 polygraph tests based on the survey you sent in. And then you go on stage with, like, your family next to you, and you answer the lie, and you answer 21 questions they picked from the lie detector. And it's brutal. It's like, do you wish you married your boyfriend instead of your ex-boyfriend?
That's crazy.
And do you wish you do you think looking like your mom when you got her age would be good? Like, and they stand to the mom, and you basically have to call your mom ugly on TV to get $500.
I wonder how much they're paying you to do that. $500,000.
That's if you win. That's 21.
So if you do all the questions and don't tell a lie.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh, I'll do that.
No, but the questions are
$500,000.
It's brutal.
I guess you hurt a lot of people's
honestly,
feelings.
It depends on I guess you just don't know. I don't.
It's.
I'll have to watch it. Where did you watch it?
He said
I
YouTube.
found a clip on Twitter, and then I found it on YouTube. There's a clip I'm going to show you off air that's just wild that I'm not going to be able to talk about.
I think I would do it for $500,000.
I mean, I don't know.
I'll have to see this clip, see what kind of questions they got going. But Jake, what do you got at the buzzer?
So big kind of career month for me. We have Penn women's basketball finally starting back up. I will be on NBC Sports Plus or NBC Sports Philly and NBC Sports Plus on, I think the date is December 7th. The Villanova women's team takes on the Penn's women's team. That'll be a fun one.
That's awesome.
And then also some exciting news on the betting side. I work for BetQL and just recently found out that I will be the executive producer of their new combat sports betting show, talking about UFC, talking about boxing live on the radio in like 10 major markets on Twitch. It's a big deal. So I'm really happy about that, and I'll obviously be plugging that on here when that all gets started up in December.
That's awesome. Yeah, congrats.
Thanks,
and I mean,
congrats.
Yeah, we'll have to get some after I get some contacts. We'll get like Conor McGregor on the show, and it'll be a ton of fun.
That's a bold statement. That's a bold statement.
I don't commit to that.
All right, all I have to say at the buzzer is the downfall of Pitt basketball has been the worst. Probably the worst ever in any D1 school history. Power 6. You say Power 6 in college basketball because of the Big East.
Basketball coming at you.
But they weren't never that good.
Pitt's never won an Natty.
I'm talking about how quick this happened.
No. Pitt has had a steeper decline.
Pitt was one seed back-to-back years in the tournament, constantly contending in the Big East. Let me just run you through the last 3 years real quick. 2018, we bring in Jeff Capel to coach. You get the Duke assistant. That's awesome. He brings in 3 recruits.
Boom.
They were all good. Those 3 guys ended up being the top 5 Pitt players of the last 5 years. They're in there somewhere. And I mean, they weren't that good, but Pitt basketball. All 3 of them have transferred out.
Nice.
Our best player just went to the league as a sophomore. Those alone set any program back 3 to 5 years. But when you can say it sets Pitt's program back 3 to 5 years, where Pitt 5 years ago was still not even a tournament team, and that's still a true statement. And now you look at this year. 2 starters. One punched a cop, got arrested. He won't play this year. Another one just tore his ACL. That's 2 starters gone. So we're like, all right. Yesterday, I didn't even want to watch the game. We were playing the Citadel at home. I've seen it too many times. My freshman year, we lost to Montana, home opener. I was at the game. Last year, we lost to St. Francis, home opener. This year, we lost to the Citadel. No. We lost to the Citadel. This has been the worst decline
I found one.
of all. I don't care about that. I don't care about the 2008, 2009 Arkansas Razorbacks.
Arkansas made back-to-back national titles games, winning one.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the next time they won a tournament game. And I'm in 2009. They won it in 94 and lost it in 95. And I'm in 2009 clicking forward looking for the next time they won it.
Well, I mean, you can go back to like 2008 right now for Pitt. I mean, it's not that much. Arkansas rebounded, though. We saw them as a 3 seed in the tournament, I believe, last year. Yeah. And we just gave them one of our players. One of those 3 guys transferred to Arkansas. But that's all I have to say. It's been the worst decline ever. I chose to watch the Sixers lose yesterday instead of Pitt to the Citadel just because I knew it was coming.
It was last year.
Yeah.
When they finally won one.
How many years was that then?
That's 27 years.
27. All right.
26 years. You're right, yeah.
Well, Pitt's at like 12 now, so we're getting there. But that's all I got to say. That's all I got to say. This team is horrible, but that's all the time we got here at Straight Facts. Again, shout out the Up On Game Podcast Network, who we are now a part of. We're really hype about it, guys. But as Jake said at the start, this is just our start. We're going to keep this ball rolling, keep this doing. Our hard work's paying off, and we have a lot more hard work to put into it. For James Jackson, who couldn't be here with us today, we'll see him next week. My man Jake Galley, Stat Matt Robinson. These have been the facts.
Straight up.